Oh my God, not bad. That's amazing. I wish I was paying more attention this week. It's just been a pretty busy week for me IRL, so missed out on that. Did you happen to get in the IDO?
I did. I didn't bang it out the park like some other people I know did in that Maryland thread, but I did contribute. I kind of went like a very safe route and contributed equally to each of the pools. I went early on the Bitcoin pools, and then the Bitcoin pools got just flooded with so much Bitcoin. So like in hindsight, I should have just waited to see how it played out and then contribute at the end. But also to that point, like Hoo was flying during the IDO, and that price has come down like drastically since. So it was probably at like a $30 million market cap while the IDO was going on, and I think right now it's like settling in around 20 million. And the same thing with Voya. So like you got a bigger allocation, but those coins dumped harder after the IDO.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was tracking Hoo today, unbeknownst to me that the IDO was going on. I saw that pulled back. I mean, it's still just hugely up. I think the first time we brought it up on BossDawgs, it was about BossDawgs. It was about like a 6 to 8 million market cap. So I mean, it's been doing phenomenally well as more people have been staking and locking up into Merlin. And I mean, the Merle token should be dropped pretty soon, right? I think they targeted end of March, so we only got a couple days left. And even if they're waiting till the halvening to unlock, I mean, everything should be unlocked pretty soon.
I think the Merle token's coming out really end of April. Like pretty much when the halving happens, I think that's when we get to unstake, and that's when we'll have our Merle tokens. But they've already released like the liquid. I want to call it the MBTC. So you right now, if you have Bitcoin staked in the Merlin seal, you can like redeem your Bitcoin with MBTC and go ahead and play around with that on Merlin Swap if you wanted to.
Oh, gotcha. Does that incorporate the bonus that you get from staking, or is that just a 1-to-1 for how much you have staked?
So currently right now it's a 1-to-1 for your Bitcoin. They're supposed to like release pretty much all the other assets that you staked with like an equivalent of it on Merlin Swap, Merlin Chain. But I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Like, so if you stake a puppet as an example, you should have a M puppet ordinal on layer 2. But like they haven't come around to that yet.
Interesting. So any plays that you're making with this MBTC, I guess I would be a little just, cautious on my end just because I have some Bitcoin staked in there, and a lot of it I put in there just to take some profits and not look back, and definitely just excited to get the Merle token. But do you think there's moves to be made in the meantime with this MBTC on the Merlin seal?
Yeah, I mean, for sure you can, but like to your point, I like to be a little bit conservative. So like my MBTC from staking, I haven't touched because I want to use that to redeem the Bitcoin I staked. But I also like bridged over BTC to like get involved with the IDO, and then also to buy Voya and Hoo. So right now, I think those are actually good plays is to buy Voya and Hoo off of that off of the dump. And also just the Merlin Swap token, if you go into Dex Screener right now, it shows the market cap at about 225 million or so. And it shows the fully diluted as the same amount, but that's actually really inaccurate. So I think the token is probably closer to a $30-40 million market cap right now with what's circulating. So I still think the Merlin Swap token is a good play.
Wow. Well, there you go. And the Merlin Swap token is going to be different from the actual Merle, right? This is a temporary Bitcoin one, and then when we actually get the Merlin Swap dropped, you're saying in April, once we can unstake, that would be different from this one, or it's the same one?
No, completely different. Okay, so the Merlin Swap token is the ticker symbol is MP, and the Merlin Chain token, the ticker symbol is MERL. So that's the governance token for the chain, and Merlin Swap token is just basically the token for the DEX. But the token for the DEX also has like an equivalent token called like ESMP, which those were the ones that people farmed and got and received. And that if you want to unlock it and convert it to MP, to Merlin Swap token, you have to unlock it like linearly over 30 days. So that's going on too. So there's a lot going on the Merlin chain. There's a ton of stuff. And I actually want to talk about like what's coming up next. So Merlin Starter is sort of like it's sort of like the launch pad for what was used for this Merlin swap and what's going to be used for things going forward. There's going to be another, I'm going to call it drop, but it's for NFT. It's called the Merlin Spellbook NFT, but this NFT is going to grant you whitelist access for all IDOs that occur on Merlin starters. I think it's something that, you know, for all of us that are playing on Merlin, it's a must have.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that seems like an absolute no-brainer if it gives you access to all of it. So is there a pre-sale for this NFT? Do you know, like, again, you know, sorry to put you on the spot here, Wow. This is just all so new to me. I've been keeping up a ton with Merlin, other than just staking into it and waiting for the Merl drop. But yeah, in terms of this NFT, have they given any details about supply and access to it?
I haven't seen much. I've only seen a couple of posts on X about if you don't have whitelist, like here's a giveaway. So I don't know what the criteria is for the whitelist. I don't think I'm in the Merlin starter Discord if there is one. So there's probably more information in there. Like I am in the Merlin swap Discord, but not the Merlin starter one. I should probably do that to find out. So there is definitely like some kind of whitelist going on, and I don't know what it is to do as far as like what's going to be the remaining supply for public, if there is going to be any. But that's something like I definitely want to have, knowing that launch pad is probably going to be the number one launch pad on Merlin chain. It seems like these projects support each other, like the Ponzi-nomics of how they're connected is real. So like I think it's just a good idea to try and get into on that.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think we've just seen with all of the airdrop opportunities that have happened in the past couple of months, it's, you know, crazy to fade it, right? And just seeing how big the wormhole airdrop was, just seeing how big some of these farming and DEX protocols that we've had, like Avo, just how large those have been. And now you have Merle coming out. So just so much money is going to be in that ecosystem, and just knowing that people are going to follow suit to be dropping tokens and then NFTs directly on the platform. If there's a pass that gives you access to all of that, pass itself seems like an ultimate cook. But then, of course, everything it grants you access to also seems like such a huge cook.
Yeah, so that's pretty much what's going on Merlin. Also, there was another token drop on Merlin called Roofy, which is supposed to be the first runes dropped on the Merlin chain, and that mint essentially broke the chain, and they had to pause the mint. So that's bullish, in my opinion, that people are minting so much that the chain basically broke down, and they had to pause it. It hasn't been, I guess, unpaused yet. So that's another one where like we have like two narratives at play there. You have the Merlin layer 2 narrative going on, and it's a rune token. So probably like a perfect segue to like start talking about some runes. But that's what's going on Merlin.
Awesome. Really appreciate it, Waf. Definitely, you know just so much about Merlin and everything going on over there. So always appreciate that you can lock it down on that front. Yeah, a perfect segue into runes. So as we mentioned, the Happening is coming up next month. It's like people have been getting pretty excited over it. It definitely seems like the action on runes has died down a little bit, but I think that's got to be attributed to the fact that we're getting closer to the Happening. For those of you who are unaware, a lot of these rune tokens that have been for sale on Magic Eden, RSIC being the main one you're probably familiar with, RSIC, those are miners for the runes. So when you own those, they are basically passively generating tokens that'll be converted to runes after the Happening. So it makes sense that as the Happening gets closer and closer, there's going to be fewer people trying to buy those. So we have seen the floor price going down on those. I think since our last episode, Leonidas got all of the runes out. They took over. They're still number one on the volume leaderboard on Magic Eden. They have been pretty much since the day that they came out. But the floor price on those has been slowly drifting down as it gets closer to the Happening. Again, that makes sense. But runes is truly upon us, and it's getting pretty exciting. So I guess I want to hear your initial thoughts, Waf, on, just what are your thoughts with the runes? Do you have any plays in mind in terms of how you're going to play it? Or is it something that you're just going to wait and see what happens and then take it from there?
So I'm still very bullish on what's going to happen with runes. Definitely the liquidity has gone to the layer 2 to Merlin chain. And RSIC, I think because people have mined a bunch of tokens, I think they're kind of saying, okay, I got enough. There's only like 4 weeks left to mine this. So let me, drop the ordinal because I have enough. So that makes sense from like the price perspective of why it's kind of gone down. And just ordinals in general. So it's probably like a double whammy for RSIC. On Runestones, I think Leonidas caught some FUD this week, which I think might have started or initiated like the scaling down and the scaling back of the Runestone price appreciation. And then just seeing some other runes drop here and there. It just seems like it's starting to get a little bit saturated, but at the same time, there's really not that many projects that are out there. So it gives like the appearance of a saturation, but in my opinion, there's really not that many rune projects going on. And we're like 3.5 weeks away from the happening. So whether it's RSIC or Runestone or even like the Rune Guardians, there's like that Rune Mania. I think a lot of these things are going to be a cook because there's nothing else out there. And I don't think it's going to be that easy to launch runes. These teams have a head start. I don't really think it's going to be that easy to launch it like the way you would just launch a shitcoin. So I guess we'll see what happens. But I think these guys have a big head start. If we expect there to be a lot of activity on the chain, it's going to be very expensive to transact. We're talking about the days where sats go back up to like 400, 500, 600. If you're in on these ordinals and you have these tokens that you've already mined, you've already won on the transaction fee front, right? And then you could sit back and wait till they airdrop them to you, as opposed to having to try and mint them and then spend like an enormous amount of money on transaction fees, and then maybe you don't even make out with what like that rune is. So I am still bullish. The price going down does make a lot of sense to me. I guess it was expected because at the end, ultimately the where the price and the value lies is in the rune tokens themselves, not necessarily the ordinals.
Yeah, 100% there. And, with RSIC, there's still going to be that big raffle at the end for the people to get the total supply. And it's going to be interesting to see these distributions. Notably, the runes collections, as we've seen so far, they have pretty big supplies compared to other collections that are out there. So the fact that there's so many holders, at least, there could be whales that just have tons and tons of wallets, but it's going to be interesting to see just how much they're worth. I would definitely expect to see some of the earlier notable names like RSIC just airdropping huge amounts. And I really think that that's going to set the pace. I think regardless of the outcome of those things, you still have Casey, who's going to be dropping the first 10 runes. So all of those projects should be pretty successful and should definitely be stuff you keep on your radar. It is a really good shout out on your part, WAF, just that the network is going to start getting kind of congested. So I think there's a few things that kind of stem from that. One, it's going to be pretty indicative of the success of Merlin, right? Because that's kind of the whole premise, is that they're doing this side chain that they're calling an L2. There's been some fodder from Bitcoin purists that might not agree with that. Ordinals is so new, so for us to already be on this L2, naturally there's going to be some FUD built in there, but as the network gets hotter and hotter, if people are going to be trying to avoid those fees and Merlin can actually keep the SAT price down and allow people to transact quickly without, having to pay these huge fees, I think it's also going to be a giant dub for Merlin as well. So it's something to keep in mind. There's definitely a lot of dynamics that are going to happen and come out at the halvening. So we'll just have to see all the dynamics and relationships as they come out, but absolute great call that the main chain is going to be pretty congested. I think that's something to watch.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to our very first episode, and when I mentioned if you're bullish on Merlin, you're not bullish enough, and I think that still stands. And I think there's like an opportunity for other L2s to come in and take some market share, because the activity is going to get crazy after the halvening. I mean, when we see the price of Bitcoin at between 70 and 71, and we've had these shows like weekly, and we've been on show days where the price dipped 10,000, where the price was up, where it happened on the same day. So I think right now, like, the Bitcoin price is like on the cusp of exploding, and that's going to bring a lot of activity in itself. So these L2s, they have a big opportunity right now to kind of take some of that weight off of L1 and get some users onto L2. So there's got to be another L2 that comes in and steps up and like helps Merlin chain too, because I think Merlin chain will also get congested. with this type of activity, because even minting roofie like broke the chain, and that's just like one mint of one token, right? So we need more L2s to be successful as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it's worth noting that there technically can't be L2s on Bitcoin. And the founder himself of Merlin in an interview said that he's marketing it as an L2 since that's what all the other competitors are doing. It's technically a side chain. It seems like maybe it's worth the distinction just because stuff that's minted on it, and there always are Bitcoin purists and maxis out there that really just pay a lot of attention to, is it minted on chain? Is it actually on Bitcoin? And that was like a whole bull case for ordinals in the first place, that it's all on chain. So it's interesting to see how those dynamics will play out. But I think ultimately for a lot of these things that have already been minted, so stuff like puppets that are now on Merlin on the side chain, I don't think it really matters where those are transacted. I definitely think for minting and stuff like that, there's still going to be considerations for if it was actually on Bitcoin versus one of these side chains. But in terms of transacting, I think it's just a matter of how can you have the most efficient market with the lowest fees out there.
Yeah, you're right. It is a side chain, but they are able to bring in like Bitcoin into their chain, which is like a massive market, right? Most of the whales are holding Bitcoin, so they're bringing in an excessive amount of money and funds. Like we see the liquidity dry up all the time, but then last night or the last 2 days, that Merlin swap IDO, there was no trouble with liquidity. I mean, they got $490 million to like jump into their IDO, with like 90% of that being refunded back, which basically was left on the chain to go play around with on the chain now. Like now that's sitting on the L2 now, unless you bridged out, but there's like a limit of 0.1 BTC to bridge out. So unless you're sitting there, bridging out 0.1 at a time, if you're like some whale that sent a few Bitcoin in, you're going to be playing around in the L2 now. And that's kind of like where your Bitcoin is, where your funds are. I think, as far as your point about the Bitcoin maxis and the Bitcoin purists, they definitely exist. They were always like skeptical of Merlin from the jump, and I think they missed out on an opportunity to stake initially. They probably are the ones that missed out on ordinals and BRC20. So you always have like sort of like varying degrees of Bitcoin purists and what they feel is like true to the chain and what isn't. And I think you got to be adaptable and flexible with how you think, or you're going to miss out on opportunities. There is definitely risk. Like, I'm not saying there isn't risk, but we kind of we're all big boys here. We got our big boy pants on, and we know the risks. It's always do your own research, like not financial advice. And if the Bitcoin purists don't want to play, then like they could just sit on their Bitcoin and let us like basically make all the money, right?
Yeah. Oh, Jinzo, go ahead.
Big boys and big girls. Don't forget the girls.
And the big girls and the big girls.
Big people, bro. We're shopping at the tall warehouses there. I'm going to need an XXL for this one. But yeah, absolutely, Waf. Well said. And I mean, I think for people listening who don't know, there's a term for Bitcoin purists called laser eyes. And it's so funny because they just like hate ordinals so much. And I think that they're just fudding gen wealth there. I mean, people who fudded early on stuff like node monkeys, puppets, like, look at how far they've come and just all of the, opportunities they had to multiply their Bitcoin. So to your point, Waf, there's clearly enough interest in Merlin with close to $4 billion staked over there that it doesn't really matter. One final point that I wanted to talk to you about, because I've been talking to some of my friends about this, and then we can move on to some projects going on. But I'm really curious what your thoughts on the dynamics are going to be at the halvening with all of this money coming out of Merlin. And I think there's just a lot of things to look out for. So the first thing I want to call out is obviously you have $4 billion being unlocked. So that's going to be pretty bullish for the Bitcoin ecosystem. And to your point, Bitcoin should probably be going up at this time. So for people who aren't super familiar with the concept of the halvening just means that the rewards that you get for mining a Bitcoin are going to be cut in half. Which is going to make Bitcoin a lot more desirable because it's going to be harder to acquire. So you're going to start to see a supply squeeze, which should send the price up. And we've seen price relationships before where Bitcoin goes up. Sometimes the ordinals pull back, But I think at this stage with ordinals, we're actually seeing the opposite effect. We're really starting to see ordinals get pulled back when Bitcoin drops. Notably, when Bitcoin went from 70 down to 51 or 61,000 again, the big sell-off in ordinals, I think, just out of fear and people being scared. So at this time around, it's going to be an interesting dynamic of price from Bitcoin with all that money going into the ecosystem. Will we see ordinals pumping or not? Thing on top of that is the introduction of runes. So naturally, a ton of the money that's in the ordinals ecosystem already is going to be rotating into runes. You can kind of see that as projects are introduced on Magic Eden right now, as stuff is capturing market share and stuff is also getting staked up into Merlin, you're seeing some of that money flow out of some top projects into other ones. So something I want to call out as a potential play for people at home is that as money leaves ordinals to go into runes, going to create a really nice dip buy opportunity on some of your top projects. And it's possible that it never comes if everyone just decides, hey, we have $4 billion, we're going to buy everything. I think realistically, it would make sense that a lot of that money is going to leave some ordinal projects, stuff like puppets, node monkeys, where there's already a lot of profit on the table. People are going to start taking profits, rotating that into runes. Runes are going to go crazy. There's going to be a lot of profitability on runes. And then you'll see that rotation back into ordinals. So at least on my end, WAF, and I'm curious if you're thinking of playing it similarly, to try to wait to get in on this ordinal dip, anticipating that runes are going to send a lot of liquidity their way, and then hopefully buy just the blue chip projects in ordinal space and ride those back up, and hopefully leave enough liquidity to play runes as well. But these were just a few dynamics that are in my mind, and very curious if you agree or feel differently.
No, I totally agree. The sector rotation is real. You see it not only like within the different projects within the chain, but you see it across other projects and chains outside of Bitcoin. Like you see rotation like into like Base as an example, right? Like Base has gotten a lot of rotation the last few days. So there's always that sector rotation. You want to be able to ride these waves, right? So you kind of don't want to go against the wave. You don't want to get wiped out. You don't want to be able to ride all these waves, anticipate where the liquidity and where the funds are going next, and get there early. I don't think you ever want to sell anything low in this stage of the market. You want to, if you have conviction on what you're holding and it's down a bit, I think you should just hold it and wait for the price to go up. Because if you start chasing like the current meta, you're just going to be one step behind, like kind of continuously as like that rotation happens, and you won't be riding the wave. You'll be getting hit by the wave. So I think that's a good shout. Like right now, ordinals are definitely have taken a dip. There's definitely going to be opportunities. I don't think you need to be too aggressive with the opportunities, but like they'll be there, and you'll see the tide come back, and you could ride the waves. You don't have to catch the absolute bottom. You could catch like the middle part and ride that too.
Yeah, I could not agree more with you there. I think there's lots of opportunities. It's just a matter of spotting them, and to your point, having conviction. Again, don't want to be accused of euphoria or hopium or copium, but we really are just so early on ordinals because there is just a larger barrier to entry. I don't think most people are aware of how to buy Bitcoin. If they do buy Bitcoin, it's a very slow network. So, just thinking about how long it took to get people onboarded to ETH NFTs in the first place, even though there were so many different marketplaces available, we are looking at a fraction of the marketplaces available for Bitcoin. We're definitely looking at it's harder to set up wallets. It's not a MetaMask wallet that we're accustomed to. It's not Phantom. I think it's an underrepresented part of the Web3 space right now. So I still think there's a lot of room for people to come on board. And I'm sure as we just see higher prices on some of these top collections, we're going to get it there. And a lot of that is just wealth events, right? When people are going to see the airdrops from Merlin, they're going to be like, oh my God, airdrop meta is renewed again. Let me check out Bitcoin. If it's runes, let me check out that. And then as it rotates back into ordinals again, I think we're going to see some of these floors coming back to life. So definitely not a cause for panic on some of these collections. As always, NFA, like do your own research and, trade when you feel comfortable. But I do think that there's going to just be a ton of opportunities to get some nice dips on these ordinal projects in coming months.
Yeah, ordinals are dead is always greatly exaggerated. Like let's just take right now, for example, the ink, I guess, to drop is right now. It's currently going on right now. The whitelist min price was 0.0058, and we're looking at a floor price of 0.071. So that's like a 12x right now. This is during the time that we're saying ordinals have taken a dip and they've dumped, but like there you go. Like there's still hot collections and hot mints coming up. There's always something going on. Even like during this week, and if we look back, we had Game of Blocks. Did you get any Game of Blocks airdrop to you?
Yeah, I got a few of them. I haven't actually played because the win rate for round one was just so low. So I just decided I'm going to hold on to it for a little bit, and hopefully that goes up over time.
But I guess my point is, like, there's always something happening, something going on, something exciting, always a way to play it. Like I wound up like just trying to sell mine as an example. I just took some profit on them. But that brought like some excitement, like how to play it. Like that was a pretty cool gamified drop that kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, it's cool how many airdrops happen in the Bitcoin space. You know, I think we're used to stuff where in Ethereum, if you own a main collection, you might get airdropped a counterpart, but it's pretty rare that we just see random collections get airdrop stuff. I guess, you know, notable collections now like Pudgy Penguins, and then over on Solana, stuff like Mad Lads, they got airdropped some wormhole allocations and some token allocations, but it's crazy. If you just own a puppet, you get just so many airdrops sent to you at this space. Like they've pretty much paid for themselves at that point if you got in a decent entry just for all the runes that you got airdropped and other stuff like that. So it is really just a cool dynamic that you get random things airdropped to you just for holding in Bitcoin. It's cool.
Yeah, the multi-wallets definitely you could take advantage of. This past week I minted, I think last week when we started the show, those little puppets had minted, and I just pretty much got them on like 20-something wallets. I think I had like 38, 39 of them. So the puppets dropped this week. I was able to mint about 48 of those, and then we minted those elemental runes. I had like 30. So, and then those game of blocks airdrop, I got 29 of them. So for me, like multi-walleting is like a good hedge against my ordinal holdings because like it's like paying me like a dividend with what I'm holding. So it kind of reduces the risk of holding ordinals.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a phenomenal hedge. And Waf, with your blessing, I would like to, for the first time in BossDawgs history, share my screen and take us in the audience over to Magic Eden.
Go for it, man.
Oh, let's go. All right, beautiful. So I want to share this for an opportunity for you guys today and also to allow Waf and I to talk a little bit more about the ink drop today. I'm going to give everyone just a second to pop on over there. If you just want to find my name in Voice Hangout chat, you can join on into my stream and check out Magic Eden so we can look at some projects and talk about it. Waf, let me know when you're here and if you can see the screen okay.
Yeah, I'm in.
Beautiful. All right, so looking at Inked, we knew that this was going to be a really hype drop coming into it, and it looks like a pretty good collection to swing trade. I wanted to just put this out for audience members because when we first started the show, I talked about this methodology, just doing this with puppets. I think Inked is a really nice collection that you could look to swing trade on because there's so much hype around it. You know, we've seen some of the mock-ups of the art. It looks really good. There's obviously stuff that can go wrong at the reveal. You know, we're not really sure what all 10,000 of these look like in conjunction. It's possible that 25% of them look exactly the same. I'm not saying they do. I'm just saying you never really know what's going to happen leading up to a reveal. But generally speaking, leading up to a reveal, prices tend to run up as there's excitement. Notably, what I wanted to point out to people listening at home is that there's already 5K unique owners. This is already up from it was about 3.4 when it started. So there's definitely some people that minted a few of them. But at this, return on your investment, like you said, Waf, it's about a 12x from mint. So there's going to be a lot of selling going on and you're going to see unique owner distribution. With that, I think you're going to see a floor run up prior to the reveal. And, for people who have traded ETH NFTs before, we know that there's always a reveal dump. So once stuff reveals, what I would look at is, does the collection look good after reveal? Because if it actually looks good, people are going to be selling commons and bricking the floor. You're going to see a lot of people racing just to brick before it goes even lower. If you can time your entry on a reveal dump, if the collection looks good, I think Inked on Bitcoin is one that will do well long term. I had my concerns the first time we talked about it on this show, but just seeing how the team has marketed it, seeing how fair the price of mint was, I do think that this one has some legs, especially for a cooler looking PFP. So we're definitely going to have to see on the reveal, but I would keep an eye out on reveal. See if you're, bullish on the artwork once it comes out. Definitely looking to scoop some rares would be a good idea, but especially just taking that floor play. Now, even further than that, today, you could absolutely have some really good plays on this collection. If you just pop open the activity here, the activity tab, and you just scroll back, I saw it a couple of minutes ago. Here we go. So 4 minutes ago, one was listed at 0.058. If we go just a little bit further back, it was within the last 10 minutes because I was tracking it during the show. Here we go. So 9 minutes ago, these reached 0.057, and now the floor is already back up to 0.072. So even if you have a smaller bankroll and you're only playing with, let's say, 0.1 total, you have an opportunity to generate $700 with these small flips, right? You can buy at 0.057, and again, just wait for the floor to go back up. So we can go over, check out the analytics tab here, and unfortunately there's no smaller time frame than 24 hours, so you're going to have to see this little scrunched up window. You can see that there's already been a lot of volatility on this collection from the jump. So if you bought in early, you had a really good opportunity to sell off here in close to the 0.1 range, but it came all the way back down for a decent amount of time to the low 0.06, high 0.07, and it's already ripping back up close to the 0.08 band. So if I was at home and I had a small Bitcoin bankroll, I would be looking to buy dips on this collection and try to generate Bitcoin that way. Maybe flip enough of them that you're able to, get some of these for free. Now, this is absolute non-financial advice because I don't want anyone to get burned. The main thing I would recommend here is just having patience and understanding what your bankroll is. If you have 0.5 Bitcoin and this price goes back to 0.05, you should feel pretty comfortable buying one at 0.05 because the price action before it has that at basically the lowest price on the chart. So until these reveal, you will get high and low swings, and you should feel pretty comfortable if you're buying on a low that at some point it's going to return back up to that high. Now, if your bankroll is 0.1, you don't want to preemptively shoot your shot, right? If it goes to 0.1, you don't really want to rush in to buy at 0.08 thinking, I'm buying the dip, it's going to go back up and I can make 0.02. It's certainly possible that that can happen, and you might be able to get a nice little flip. But I would just be monitoring this chart over the next couple of days. I will go into the Inked Bitcoin server, see when are they going to actually be revealing the collection. And as long as that collection hasn't revealed and there's no FUD on the project, then I think you can feel pretty comfortable buying the dips and selling the rips. And with those, I would just really recommend, you're never going to bottom ticket exactly. I mean, maybe you will, but most of the time you won't. So just feel comfortable of setting for yourself a mental note of, if it gets to this price point, I'm a buyer, and this is how much I want to make for every time I flip, right? If that's 0.01, amazing. If that's 0.02, great. It's all up to you how you want to trade that, but I wanted to share my screen and call this out for the first time because this is the exact thought process that I've gone through before for collections that are pretty hyped. And out the gate, Inked looks like a really good collection. Can't stress this enough. This is a really good opportunity to just generate some Bitcoin pretty quickly, right? Like if you have enough to flip 5 or 6 of these, you can very easily make 0.1 Bitcoin, 0.2 Bitcoin in the weekend. So just wanted to throw this on the radar. Sorry to ramble on here, Waf, but very curious your thoughts on a play like this.
No, I totally agree with you. Like just from like the low price that you've showed us on screen to what the floor is now, that's $1,000, right? So if you do that a couple of times, every time you do that flip, that's another $1,000. And then also just want to point out like the pendings. So on your screen, you're showing 332 pendings, but right now if you refresh, it's like 392. And when those go clear through and the new block comes in, there'll be more people listing. So that's where the dips kind of occur. Like after the blocks clear, then people will receive their ordinal, and then they'll list, and then that's when you normally you'll see like the floor price start decreasing. So I think initially when we saw that dip to 0.058, those are the people who received their ordinals first, and they were trying to dump on the 0.06 floor at that current time, and then the floor shot up on them, but they got out at their 0.058 10x. Should be happy with that, right? So they're out on that, but now the floor price is now 0.072, with a ton of pendings still going on right now. And then I would say one more point would be on the reveal. Like, this is a 24-hour reveal. Like, post-reveal, if you believe in this collection, post-reveal is still going to dump anyway, to Ross's point. And a dump here could be like half this floor price easily. So, you could be talking about 0.035, 0.36, which at that point might be a good time to pick up again, knowing that it might kind of creep back up into the 0.05, 0.06 range. So like even now here, like, I'm debating whether I should sell or not. I'm probably going to list it because 0.07 is pretty good, and I don't want to play the reveal lottery because I don't really have good RNG luck. I don't have that relic luck. So it's just a great opportunity to stack Bitcoin. It's an easy one. So when you have an easy one, you don't want to fumble the easy ones.
Yeah, 100%. You definitely don't want to fumble the easy ones. And I mean, I hate to say it because it's just a comparison you can make with every project, but it really does remind me a lot about Azuki. And when Azuki first came out, it teased this beautiful artwork ahead of time. The pre-sale price, it was like going from 1.2 ETH, and then 12 hours later, it was like 3 ETH. The reveal happened. I think they briefly went back down to 1.8. The art ended up being amazing, and it was a fucking moon mission from there. And I think that's where you're going to have to put on your art detective hats and play it how you want to play it. To Waf's point, if his RNG is not great, you can count on the floor dumping. Even if the art is amazing, there's always that post-reveal dump for people who pull commons, right? Because everyone who's holding through reveal, they want that ultra rarity. 90% of people aren't going to get a rare. So when that happens, it's going to be a race to dump, and then people are going to panic. Oh my gosh, the floor is dumping. I need to list. And when a bunch of people list at once, floor bricks. That's just the price dynamics across any chain, across any reveal collection. It is a tried and true pattern that we've seen play out. But again, back to that Azuki comparison, a lot of the previews we've seen for Ink look awesome. The art just looks really good, and it's showing here with this floor price already that people are interested in this collection and has a lot of hype behind it. So I think there's a lot of factors that culminate into this one being successful as long as the art looks good. And again, that is a key component that we don't know yet because it's a 10,000 supply total, right? 10,000 is a lot. If the art between them is very, very similar, like what happened with the Azuki Elementals, there's probably going to be some FUD and that might sell off. But if they all look super unique, super distinct, if they pass the PFP test, then go for it. Wait for that dip. It's the same exact thing that I talked about if just knowing what your bankroll is. If you have 3 Bitcoin on hand, then start buying that dip when it gets to 0.05. If it goes to 0.04, buy some more. If it goes to 0.03, buy some more. Again, not financial advice, but scale into it as it dips if the art looks good to you, because that is just a no-brainer play that if the art looks good on reveal, people are going to FOMO in after. There's already a really good holder to total supply ratio. So this is one that I think buying the dips and selling the rips is a no-brainer. And if you're really convicted in the project, just be around during the reveal, right? If the art looks good and there's some rares that people are selling for not too much, like there might be really rare stuff that people are selling for 0.1 Bitcoin, you have to keep in mind that a lot of people who minted this project are off mint at 0.005. So there's an opportunity for them to list for something that seems like astronomical profit. 0.2 for them is a 40x, but just given how rare some of these things in the collection might be, you have a chance to snipe that, right? 0.2 Bitcoin is not a lot for the whales that are in this game. So if you can find people papering ultra rare stuff on release, just be glued into it, really. Again, it's not financial advice at all. I don't know what the art looks like on this. I don't know how it's going to perform after its reveal, but it has all of the makings for something that I would be glued to my screen once it reveals, because there's going to be great opportunities to trade, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, and also, if you're selling, one thing I would suggest, because like 2 minutes ago, someone sold, actually it's 3 minutes ago now, somebody sold one for 0.058 3 minutes ago. And you know why that person sold for 0.058 is because they probably went to their wallet and they went to my items and then they kind of clicked on floor and the floor auto-populated at 0.058. So when you're listing on Magic Eden, don't allow Magic Eden just to populate the floor to you. When you're listing, go check the collection and make sure that's the real floor. Because this thing's moving so fast, it picked up a lower floor amount. So here's this person sold at 0.058 for what reason, I have no idea, when they could have gotten at least a 0.072.
Absolutely. Such a great call out there, WAF. And something else to point out, we don't have a lot of tools like we did with ETH yet. They're going to be coming out, not a doubt, right? It's a smart space. Tools pop up on the scene all the time. To my knowledge, we don't have stuff similar to NFT Nerds where we instantly get the rarity, we instantly get stuff. So there's an advantage right now in the space just being able to do stuff manually. This is something I took advantage with RSIC. When people weren't even aware of the rarity of the collection, every now and then you could find people papering rares on the floor. So first thing I want to go over is just how would you know that the floor price is going up versus going down? You want to make sure you're filtering your activity tab for sales as well as listings, and this is going to give you an indication of it's going down or up. And I'm sure a lot of you know this just from trading, but just to make sure that we're all on the same page here, if you see a huge brick of listings coming in and it is like 80% listings and 20% sales, that's probably a good indication that the floor is starting to go down. So when you're looking to buy a dip, what I would look for is for this right here, we're seeing a lot of sales coming in and not a ton of listings, and the listings, some of them that are coming in are above the floor. I would be looking for people that are bricking the floor. If it's 0.072, I would wait for 10 or 20 0.072s in a row. When you see a bunch of people listing everything at the same price point, 0.072 after another, inevitably someone is going to come in to undercut that floor and further and further and further. So if you're looking for a good opportunity to buy to perform the flip on the collection pre-reveal, just keep an eye on the listings. As the listings start to slow down and you start to see the floor thin out, that's usually when sales will start to pick up. Another thing to note with Magic Eden is because it is still, pretty new marketplace, at least for Bitcoin, it does not automatically refresh, so you do have to click out of it and then open it back up. So if you're watching this collection, I would just be closing it, opening it up a lot, and just watching for these listings to come in, right? Again, here, these are all really above floor, so there's not much of a concern, but once you see these listings start piling up at 0.075 or whatever it is, that to me means that it's going lower. So if you're holding an inked and you see these listings come in, maybe that's your sign to undercut the floor early before the listings pour in. If you're a buyer, maybe that's your opportunity to sit and wait and get it on that dip. But just wanted to call out that dynamic for people who aren't as familiar with tracking sales and listings.
That's a good shout. And if you look back now, like the last minute, there's been a couple sales at 0.06, 0.061, 0.062. So again, I just want to reiterate that point, like make sure you check the actual collection instead of just checking floor and submitting it.
100%. And then one final call out to WAF's point. For these things here, when the price goes lower, there is a mechanism that people can do to reroute your transaction. If your transaction gets rerouted, it's basically just like you got front ran or like a sandwich attack when you're trading coins. Someone is able to replace your transaction in mempool and have it send to their wallet instead of yours. You'll get your Bitcoin back. It's not like you've gotten robbed. It's just a matter of they might see something like this. Oh, wow, someone paper handed at 0.062 while the floor is 0.01 higher. So basically an instant $700 if that transaction goes through. So it is possible for them to get in and snipe that from under you. To combat that, I would recommend sending a faster SAT speed if you're able to. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. You don't have to do 100 or 200, but if you do see one of these opportunities where it is notably below floor, right, free $700, I would be looking to up my sats to maybe 50 or 60 at the very least, because that's going to push it to the top of the block and hopefully I don't get sniped. It's happened before. I've gotten sniped on stuff. It kind of sucks because it's like free money, but just to be aware that is something that happens. So if it happens to you, just check out mempool. It's possible it got rerouted. You will get your Bitcoin back, but it is an advanced technique that's out right now, so you got to just be lookout for that.
Yeah, I actually got sniped this week too, so that's a good shout. And then I would say if you're going to be out there like looking for things to purchase on a hot mint like that just released, you should probably be using the Xverse wallet instead of Unisat, because in the Xverse wallet you can change the fee in it, whereas Unisat you kind of just like stuck with the default. So if you're trying to buy this collection on secondary, I would recommend using the Xverse wallet.
Absolutely, WAF, great shout. And if the whole floor has gone down at that point, it's not really that likely to happen. It's more so when the floor is like 0.072 and someone lists at 0.05. But if the whole floor goes to 0.05, that's fine. No one's really going to be looking to replace it for 0.001. All right. let's talk about one final element of this reveal, and then I think we can move on from Ink WAF, unless you have more to talk about it. But this is a feature that's still relatively new to Magic Eden. They only added it a couple of weeks ago, and it's just the trait count. And this is like so simple on reveal, but there's a lot of people who are still overlooking it. Again, we don't have a tool like NFT Nerds, and people are just like, they need rarity force fed to them sometimes. I hate to say it, but like in this space, it's just like, oh my gosh, I don't have the exact number of my rarity. It doesn't say 1 of 10,000, but you can figure it out pretty easily, right? If you just go over here, this Bitcoin Puppets, just to show you as an example, it's just right here, this little number is the trait count in the collection. And you can just scroll down to the bottom and see which has the smallest count. Oh my God, Bitcoin Crown's at 0.6 floor. GG to Seinfeld if you're listening. That's crazy. But yeah, you can just see here the premiums are so high once these floors get established. So when Inked on Bitcoin comes out, there's not going to be that rarity guide. You're not going to see, okay, this one is 250 of 10,000. Just look for the traits that people have desirable in any collection, right? So just to break this down a little bit further, stuff like face is usually not that popular. I guess in this one there's glasses, but you can see based on hat, 0.6 for the rarest trait. For face, 0.4 for the rarest trait, and I'm willing to wager that there's not a ton of sales at those. Stuff like background, not really important at all, right? Even the Bitcoin orange, slightly above floor, maybe a little bit premium, but it's nothing crazy. So you should be targeting on Inked on Bitcoin. Again, if the art looks good, if you're convicted, I need to go buy rares, filter for those traits and just wait for it, you know? Go to shirt, big premium. Go to item that they're holding, big premium. We've seen it play out time and time again. If there's a fur or a skin trait, those do pretty well. If there's a rare hat, those do super well. Clothes does well. Eyes, depending on how cool it looks. Laser eyes, always a popular one. So just as a shout for people who aren't aware of this, because they did add it like 2 weeks ago, and you know it wasn't super public out there, but yeah, they got trait counts now. So make it work for you. Definitely target the coolest traits early on. And that's a really nice sub-conviction play you can take with any Ordinals collection. If you think the collection is going to do well, then take conviction in what traits you think are going to do well further, because those can really outperform. Again, with puppets, you could have bought the Bitcoin Crown for maybe 0.04 premium a couple weeks ago, and now you're paying triple the floor for it. So again, just wanted to point that out for people listening at home.
Yeah, I would say you could never go wrong with hoodies, and then also like that Bitcoin Puppet one, like that's on the top of the collection, like that one just sold for 4.2 Bitcoin like this week. So like that's a lot of money right there too. So Bitcoin apparel, I would say you can never go wrong with, and also hoodies.
Yeah, 100. Oh yeah, that's a good point. The Bitcoin apparel, you can't go wrong with at all. These do happen to be the rarest traits in this collection. They probably will be in most collections if there is Bitcoin. But yeah, for the Inked on Bitcoin, there's almost guaranteed to be hats that have Bitcoin on them. If it's a rare trait and it represents Bitcoin, that's a no-brainer. I would just slam the buy on that if it's close to floor. No-brainer. Dope. So, Laugh, let's throw it over to just the leaderboard here for Magic Eden. I'll just scroll down. If there's any projects you want to talk about, if you want to talk about their price action lately, if you want to talk about where they're at, we can just dive into them, maybe look at some stuff within the collection. But yeah, let me know if there's anything you see here you want to talk about.
Yeah, you know, I was looking at the puppets. I think they've been holding pretty strong. I know they kind of got up as high as 0.3, 0.31, 0.32, but at 0.25, they've held up pretty decently.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's expand it to the 1 month chart here and just take a look. I mean, they've been holding really well, but over 0.25 for a while. You know what? Silly me. That was a 24-hour chart still. Magic Eden is still a pretty glitchy platform. All right, so for 1 week, they've been holding up phenomenally over 0.2. And let's see if it will give us the 1 month breakdown. There we go. So we did have a micro crash, if you want to call it that, where it briefly got close to 0.3, fell all the way back to 0.15. But since then, the gas has been once again applied on puppets. So yeah, they've been absolutely crushing it. They briefly broke 0.3, and even now pulling back, they're still holding slightly below 0.25.
Yeah, so that floor looks pretty good. And then if I don't know if you want to take a look at monkeys.
Absolutely, I would love to. So we're seeing on the day they're getting a bit of a dip, but it's a pretty expensive collection. So a dip from 0.6 to 0.56, not that bad. Again, it goes to show you, if you do have a big Bitcoin bankroll, there's opportunities to be made, right? Because if you just bought this and it goes back to 0.6, like you're still making close to $3,500. Like that's enormous. Magic Eden rugging us here. Here we go. Here's the monthly chart or the weekly chart for you. So a little bit of a pullback from 0.7, but again, we're seeing a lot of rotation, people getting ready for runes and other projects. So it makes sense that we're selling off a little bit. If we go to the month, you can see here it's getting close. The low on the collection looks like it's just a little bit below 0.5. So I'd probably be looking to that if we do get that rotation into runes and we start to see ordinal selling off. Again, it's hard to say once the money in Merlin unlocks exactly what's going to happen. Part of me thinks that people will go straight again for these ordinals, but a good chance that we get a rotation out when runestones come. So I would just look at the support on these charts. It looks to be right at 0.5, maybe a little below it, like 0.45. So you could scoop a node monkey between 0.4 and 0.5. That seems like a pretty decent buy opportunity if you had the bankroll for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think 0.04 to 0.5. Oh, 0.4 to 0.5 is the buy zone. Like here, it's tapping 0.5 and kind of rising up. So you anything under 0.5, you're probably lucky enough to snag it, and you can ride it back up to 0.6, 0.7, and make $10,000, $15,000.
Yeah, absolutely crazy. And I want to see here. I actually haven't really looked at the charts too much. Where are the hoodies in the collection? Is that under body? No, that would be different, right?
I never really dug into the traits on the No Monkey so much, but it's a good collection to like grab something off the floor that shouldn't be there. If you look at the next one up on the traits for a particular trait, you might grab something at the floor that the next one up might be like a 0.8. So it's a good flip right away. You could like buy and relift immediately almost.
Absolutely. And I mean, this just goes to show you with the conviction in it. So just going back to your point that hoodies do well, it's funny that you see here the trait counts for these collections like Overlord, Mind Police, Peer. They're all 4 times more rare than hoodie. Mind Police times rarer, 2.5. But the floor for hoodie is so high because it's just a desired trait in a collection. So you're going to have a good opportunity with something like Inked on Bitcoin. If Laser Eyes is a common trait, there's still going to be a really nice premium. So just understanding market dynamics and what people like, just knowing what's hyped is a really powerful tool. So especially for hoodie, node monkeys, again, they were sitting around the same range as puppets until a couple months ago where they just absolutely went crazy. So if you had conviction in node monkeys and you saw these slightly above floor, you can take a double conviction play, the first conviction being on node monkeys, the second conviction being on your rare trait, and you can usually get a pretty big multiplier out of those. So you do have to be careful. Floor always presents less of a downside risk because let's say you're buying at the absolute floor and the floor dips 0.02. Great, you lost 0.02 Bitcoin, you can move on. If you overpaid by 0.1 to get a rare trait and then the floor gets cut in half, you're going to be subject to losing 0.1 if you have to floor yours to get out of the collection. So I would not always be buying rares. There's definitely some distinction and art that goes with it. But again, if the art collection does look good and it's a collection that you think is going to do very well over time, then the multiplier on your premium when you're buying a collection in its infancy, it absolutely snowballs. So that's just something to point out.
Yeah. I had like 3 other collections on my watch list, I'm going to say.
Sure.
The first one was Nat Cats. I think right now there's a lot of distribution going on with Nat Cats, and it's probably a good opportunity if you're not in to snag one at these prices. I think the volume has still been pretty decent. It's still trading daily in the top 12 on the Magic Eden collections. So I do think this distribution needed to happen. There's a lot of whales probably have multiple wallets where their Nat Cats are residing in. So the distribution is probably a little bit overstated, and now we're getting real distribution.
Yeah, that's a good call there. And I really come to realize with the Nat Cats, we've been calling them out when they were trading pre-spreadsheet. I think I put up my field report on them when they were right around 0.027 floor over the counter. You obviously minted them, so got in even sooner. But these guys went all the way up to 0.14, and I think it really was that distribution issue that caused it to lose momentum. I mean, you could see here the owner distribution, it's still not great. It's not bad. It's definitely getting there. It was like 1.8K for a little bit. It's getting to that 3.2. We obviously just saw with something like Inked on Bitcoin, it's a much better distribution, but that's because they took advantage of whitelists as opposed to Natcats. It was a free mint. So it makes sense that the people who are minting for free, they were able to mint hundreds of them and cannibalize a big portion of that ownership distribution. But to your point, haven't lost track of that thesis there. I'm still holding all my cats and still buying into them. They still really do have a good thesis if you believe in DMT and Nats. So it's definitely one that's still, in my mind, undervalued at these prices. I'm definitely looking to continue to buy them. As I buy them, spreading them across wallets, to your point, just to be a better contender for airdrops, so I can hopefully get 10 airdrops as opposed to one per wallet. But absolutely, I think they're pretty undervalued here. I think it's just a matter of time, but these are getting close to spreadsheet levels when they were trading over the counter. So, I mean, it definitely is a good contender. Not financial advice. Obviously, we both own a decent amount of them, but I'm still bullish on them. I haven't even thought about capitulating on this. It's just a matter of time, IMO.
Yeah, I'm just forcing myself to not add, but because since I'm in at even below this floor price, like I'm pretty comfortable. And all it takes is a couple of big sweeps, and this thing is back up to like 0.05. So I'm not really worried at all. I think there's just someone out there who's I'm gonna say a motivated seller, and they're just kind of unloading and like taking their profits and going, which is fine. We need that distribution, and I'm okay holding this for the long term.
Yeah, very well said. And for the audience at home, if you don't have a Natcat yet, a beautiful flip opportunity, because they have been oscillating in this 0.03 to 0.04 to 0.05 range. So you could definitely look at this. This is great if you have a lower bankroll. You could look to buy one at the low 0.03s. Maybe if it dips below that and goes to 0.029 or something, you could look to flip that up. But more notably than that, if we just filter to only sales for a second, people have been bricking some rares just throughout the week. Which I think presents really good opportunities to get some of these here. So just as a for instance, these salmon traits are pretty rare. You could see someone here just paid 0.061 for the salmon, and then again, one popped up for 0.045. So if we do see the floor on Natcats come back, there's going to be huge premiums on stuff like this. When they were at the 0.14 floor, fish in general were going for about 0.03 over the floor price. And right now, if you're just patient, you can find people listing at the floor because they are motivated sellers. So I would definitely look for some rare and some cool Natcats. This is an interesting one that they just added an additional trait after the fact. It's color matching. Oh, that popped up a new window. I'll just show you right here. So for color matching, you can see that there's same face, neck color, 3 color, same ear color. So something like same ear color, especially with the head here, this is something that I think is a pretty cool trait because there's really not a lot of them. This is 3 color being the way that this works is it's like any 3 colors, which is kind of common. So like the body, the ear, the face could be the same, but both ears being the same color and the face is somewhat rare. So I would just be looking out for these if you're going to buy something like this. If this hits the floor, is a really cool buy op. And again, once it pops up in price, you're going to see those pay some premiums. And here, perfect, as I wanted to find this one. If you zoom in here, this one has an alien earring and someone just bricked the shit out of it, right? 0.0373. This was floored at the time. So just keep an eye on these collections that have good buy zones. The alien earring already, I think, is a decent flip from that. Let's see what alien earring is at. That is a 0.12 floor. I mean, that's just crazy. Someone just absolutely bricked the shit out of it. So again, if you're just tuned into some of these things, there's buyers who are just like, or holders who just want to get out and they're just bricking stuff. There's actually a few alien earrings that have been bricked over the past couple of days. So if you have a small bankroll, spend time watching these collections. You don't have to buy anything, but in a case like this, a free 0.08 just right off the bat, right? That's almost $5,000 that you can just make instantly if you're just glued to these collections. So I'd be looking to buy dips here, and particularly because the floor is low, I would be looking for that rare premium multiplier.
Yeah, so I agree with you. I wanted to mention those alien earring ones too, but you were all over it, and so nothing else to add there. And then the other collection that I feel like has just been punished like severely lately is Bitcoin Frogs. I mean, this was like an OG collection, and man, the floor price has just completely bottomed on this thing.
Yeah, Frogs is one that I've never really followed closely, but I mean, what do you think, WAF? Do you think this is just a case of liquidity rotating elsewhere? Did this project in particular just get hit hard? Like, what do you think happened?
This one is puzzling to me because this one was like the premier collection before Node Monkeys. I think maybe the first 10K collection was sort of like the narrative, but then Node Monkeys came along and kind of stole that narrative from them, and their Discord was known for having sort of like the ordinal alpha at the time back in the first ordinal run back in April 2023. So they've seemed to have fallen off the radar for some reason. I just think at 0.07 it's not a bad price.
Yeah, I really agree with you there. I mean, you can just look at this chart and you got to account for all, tides rise, all boats, right? So once we see the rotation back into ordinals, we get some of this cash unlocked. It might be, floors might dip a little bit lower if that money goes straight into runes. But there's definitely a price point where any ordinal collection that is somewhat of a blue chip is a good buy. I would be looking out for stuff that's derivatives or things that are close to zero. I wouldn't be buying them because I think those things just sometimes never come back. But something to your point, like Bitcoin Frogs, where it was that premier project, has a nice community online. Once more money rotates into ordinals, you should get a pretty big pop across the boards. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people in here remember back in ETH days, there's days where every collection's like 50% up. So again, just play to your bankroll and what your sizing is. But at 0.07 down from a high of 0.25, it seems like there's definitely an upside here.
Yeah, I mean, and this chart doesn't show it because, Magic Eden doesn't have like the best charts. But in November of 2023, so which was only 5 months ago, Bitcoin Frogs was as high as 0.46. I mean, they were almost half a Bitcoin, and now look at them; they are now 0.07.
RIP top buyers. My goodness. Waf, you said there's another project that you've been looking at, or you want to talk about?
Yeah, so the last one is not a PFP project. It's Bitmaps. Bitmaps is another one that's been getting punished lately, and the floor is like way down. And there's a whole crew of us who have bought a ton of Bitmaps early on, and I think this price is just way too cheap.
Yeah, I completely agree with you there. For people who aren't as familiar with bitmaps, your first thought upon seeing it might be, whoa, 836,000 of them. But we've seen map collections do very well on other chains before, right? These maps have been around on ETH, they've been around on Solana, and essentially these represent the data within the blocks that have been minted, hence the high supply, Bitcoin blocks that is, and it represents the amount of transactions that have been done on them. For people who follow the Block Runners podcast, they talk about the potential for these in the future. There's a really solid appeal for people who really believe in Bitcoin and the data within Bitcoin, because all of these were generated through the data organically on the chain. And this presents a lot of opportunities for a non-arbitrary metaverse, right? Like we've seen the metaverse narrative before where NFT worlds have come out, other projects of that nature where it's just parcels and plots of land. But we're only in year one of ordinals, and in terms of Web3 as we know it, it's still a very new space. If you go ahead in 20, 30 years in the future, where so many things are going to be conducted online, we're going to have a ton of marketplaces being built and a ton of metaverse land that people are going to be in VR or otherwise. It makes sense that people are going to have some desire for parcels of land that are derived directly from Bitcoin themselves. That is at least the thesis for these. Obviously all bets are off. Who knows what's going to happen in 20 to 30 years? But to your point, Waf, these really have fallen a decent bit in price, and they're a pretty good project if you're looking for a cheap entry. Even though there are so many of them, we have seen these map projects perform very strongly in the past. So I don't think these are going to be any exception. I definitely own quite a few bitmaps and have them staked over on Merlin, and I'll just keep buying them for the time being. I mean, I think it's a really cool concept, and they're just kind of fun to look at the same time, even without the land being integrated.
Yeah, the floor on these was as high as 0.006, and the thesis is that these should probably eventually hit 0.01. So if we get to 0.01 from here, that's a 5x.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a really good shout out here. We'll take a look at the chart, but definitely one that's been on my radar and something that I plan on to continue accumulating if possible. The issue I'm going to run into here is that the price scale is not very Magic Eden, so on any time frame it's just going to look a line, but that's okay. Alright. You get the idea, folks. Sorry about that. Magic Eden's rugging me here. On my end, WAF, one project I wanted to talk to you about is I've been seeing this pop up on the time frame. It's just called Sense. And I think it's kind of fun. I really just like projects like this that are a little bit different. I think crypto in general kind of just likes pointless shit. And this to me is absolutely that. If you're just looking at this as a collection, they're just pennies on the blockchain. But for some reason, there's been a lot of activity on them. And they've been popping up in the trending tabs on the daily, on the 7-day. There's not a great owner distribution, 2.7 to 10K, but these are below 0.01 right now. I think there's a decent opportunity for maybe a 2 to a 3x. Not financial advice, folks. They're just pennies. But I think it's one of those things that are just kind of funny. People in crypto like to make stuff that's just like impossible, right? Like we saw in shitcoins used Honda Civic, and that went up to like a 30 million valuation. So I think people just kind of noting like the description of this collection is something to the effect of, oh, wow, like the pennies themselves are worth more than the underlying, right? The copper in the penny is worth more than the penny. So this is just a play on it where it's like the image of the penny will be worth more than the penny. So it's just one of those like stupid crypto things that kind of happens, but it has really good momentum over the past couple of days. A lot of buys been coming in on it. And again, it's pretty cheap with not a great distribution, but I think it's one of those projects that if it continues to show strength over the next coming days, I could absolutely see it doing maybe a double or a triple. So just one fun one that I wanted to point out there, but as always, not financial advice. This is definitely a more degen play, but it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I saw this when it was minting. The pre-sale was going on for a long time, and then I kind of just lost like sight of it, and so I faded. But yeah, it definitely did better than what I was expecting it to do.
Yeah, I mean, who's to say, right? Like a lot of these projects are here today, gone tomorrow, but that was an interesting one. And then the only other one I wanted to bring up was this project Dryphorian Angels. I'm kicking myself because I sold it early. I don't even know where the hell these came from. To me, such a strong potential to be the Miladies of Bitcoin. And that is a community that is just cockroach in the Web3 space. They will not go away. They love to be heard, and they just have that same vibe to them. There's only 443 of these, so I sold mine for a very small flip when it was 0.007, but there's such a small supply and a 50% ownership that to me, these just have a potential to have a really, really niche community. I was blown away when I rechecked these and saw that they're close to 0.03. But just the fact that there's so few of them, I could absolutely see some Bitcoin whales out there who just will never sell these for whatever reason. I think if you go on Twitter, if you go on their Discord, there's people who just covet them and really seem to like these. Again, not financial advice. These are up a little bit over time, and it's always a different price dynamic with small collections because it's not as liquid. That's, I guess, the key, and there's not as much opportunity for volume to put these on a trending chart and gain more publicity. But just given how many people are already in the project and how low the supply is, I would put this on your watch list. It's an interesting one.
The art's pretty cool. Agree with everything you said there. Not a flip, maybe something to hold. And that's it. Yeah.
All right, that was the Magic Eden deep dive. That was our first screen share on the show, so I hope that was cool with the audience, and I'm curious what you thought of that, WAF.
That was good. I like going through the collections like that.
Oh yeah. All right, so we're a little over an hour. I got a hard out at 3:30. But is there anything else that you want to talk about going on in the ordinal space? I know I've been rambling about price charts and inked on Bitcoin and all that, but I want to hear you ramble if you got anything that you're just passionate and you got to slam the table on. Wow.
No, I think the way we started off the show, I'm just going to go back to that, is it's just the Merlin chain. Like right now, that's where the action's at. That's where the liquidity is at. And I anticipate it's just going to grow and grow and grow, especially with the unlocks coming. Just looking forward to doing more there. Definitely looking forward to runes, and then I think the eventual rotation back into ordinals. I think that's kind of like how it's going to play out, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Waf, with all the stuff going on in Merlin, do you make it a point to still keep liquidity on hand, or is that just something that you've gone, head first into? It's just Merlin or bust.
I leave funds on the chain, so I have like funds in Bitcoin there, and I have some Voya and Hoo and I got some LPs going on. So I just keep liquidity on the chains because it's just easier to like make a move rather than have to wait to like bridge over. So you have to like consider like if you're bridging at the same time everyone else is bridging, then there could be a delay.
Yeah, that's a great shout there. That's honestly a really good call out, because it would suck to be sidelined without wanting to or having to pay an astronomical fee to get back in.
Yeah, exactly. Is there anything else you wanted to touch upon before I guess we wrap up?
Nah, man, I went absolutely crazy today. I appreciate it. I know I was just ranting like hell about like, this is the dip buy and this is the zone, but that's just how my mind works. So I just wanted to come in today, share some screens, and just, really serve the people in the chat. Audience, if you have any questions, you can always hop off mute. You can tag Waf and I in voice chat. We actually might have a few tags here, so let me just make sure. Looks like we got Silva talking about some geckos. Can I FUD ordinals as the outro? Silva needs a better entry. Bro, I wish I could FUD him. I think there's Gen Wealth here. Now. But yeah, call out to the audience. Does anyone have any questions for us? I know Waf and I went over a lot this episode. If you have any questions on Merlin, I'm sure Waf would be able to help. He just is an encyclopedia on Merlin, which I'm super appreciative of because I don't know that. But yeah, any questions, any collections you want to bring out? We're all MVHQ here, so it's a safe space. If there's a collection you want to talk about that we haven't been focusing on, you want us to give it a look, we'll do it right now.
Yeah, I have one. So there's a rumor going around that Velocity Series has an announcement tomorrow regarding the next season of their pass. So this is like the Red Bull art project that did very well. The rumor is that they might do their next season on ordinals. So I don't know if that's true. So take that with a grain of salt. And I believe we'll find out tomorrow if it's true or not. But if it is true, I was curious how you thought art might, like actual real gen art might do on ordinals.
Well, there's been a couple of collections I think did pretty well. There was that Harto, I think it was called Florio Forms. Is that the right name, Ross? I forgot the name. It did pretty well. And then there was a DMT art collection called Natalia, which was sort of like a Fidenza style, call it generative art based on like Bitcoin data, and that did well for a while and then kind of fell off. So I do think there is room for art collections to do well in Bitcoin. If anything, if you are like a preeminent like artist, I think you would want your art to be on Bitcoin, and I think that should be like your premier collection. Personally, it's the way I see it.
Yeah, completely agree with Waf. Definitely echoing that sentiment. I think the biggest thing is just seeing the art for yourself and seeing how it looks. I think differentiation in an art project is pretty big. The Natalias did a lot before they went live. We talked about this in the last episode of BossDawgs. The holder distribution is something that you can run into issues with on Bitcoin, and that was the case with Natalias. A lot of people minted those over the counter, got them for free. There was really not a lot of insight into what the owner distribution was until those got indexed on Magic Eden. So the people who bought over the counter got screwed to an extent. And then the Natalias themselves, they looked pretty similar. I still think they could come back at some point if Nats as a whole, and that whole ecosystem does well. But Yeah, I completely agree with WAF. I think art on Bitcoin is a great place to be, but to just view the precautions, want stuff that looks unique. If every single piece is the exact same, entire collection is going to have to do well. It's almost better that they all are exactly the same as opposed to they're all, quote, different, but they look indistinguishable. At that point, you lose a lot of interest in collectability. So for art pieces, I go for the uniqueness tests. Are there really nice ones in the collection? Do the floor ones that aren't as rare or as nice as the nicest, do they still look good? Those are things I would definitely consider. But that's an amazing shout, AI. I think if that collection did well on other chains and they come to Bitcoin, there's no reason they wouldn't be as or more successful. But with any art project, you have to keep in some additional factors. Low supply as well, right? We talked about that with the Dreyfurian Angels. There's only 500 pieces. Expect it to be really hot for about a day, and then it's going to fade on the leaderboard. So I would really make sure that if you're going to be playing them, figure out your thesis and your move ahead of time. Decide if you're going to be quick flipping it or you're going to be long holding it. These are all very different on art collections because of that small supply. So I hope that answers your question.
I'll just add that the distribution, I just sent the link into voice hangout chat. As far as the DMT projects were getting minted out by just a low number of minters, there seems to be a new solution that's going to kind of go into effect on this redacted project, which should be interesting, and I think that's going to help DMT projects, that there'll be a wider distribution from the outset as opposed to just a few lucky minters minting up the entire collection. And by the way, this collection is pretty hyped too, so you should follow it.
Ooh, yeah, that is a hype one, Waf. Great call. All right. Well, final call for the audience. I'm about ready to head off here, but as always, Waf, you are just an encyclopedia of knowledge. Always a pleasure hosting these with you. And just looking forward to it, man. I'm really excited to see the Merlin pay off big for you. I know you've been pounding the table on it. You got me staking, so I'm just really excited for all of us on the BossDawgs show here to ride the wave. And yeah, man, definitely a great episode.
Yeah, as always, a great episode, and let's just ride the wave. We got some good things coming up. The halving should be good. The runes should be good. Let's just go get it. And we just had our mint. We got our MVHQ event coming up. So good times ahead.
Times ahead. All right, folks. Until next week, we'll see ya.
Later.